Just an excuse. Anyway, we're going to talk about brand communication and creative development through the process of developing communication material. Our target for every brand, it's an obvious state that we would like to persuade our audience. And I'm coming back to what Mr. Klimis mentioned, that we create for others, to others, with us in the middle. So all this work is definitely cut out for us. So step one will be definitely to persuade those that we are referring to, our audiences. And then we have to change the state of mind at that particular moment that we're communicating to. And with whatever we have to say under whatever messages that we're passing along, we need to influence them to react towards the direction that our client wants us to get the audience to go to. And this is what makes a unique communicative design. Client brief. The most misunderstood part of our business section that clients don't think they have to provide. And I stand here and I tell you, without a brief, there is no concept, and without a concept, there is no design. So when your clients come to you, if they come with no brief, you say, no brief, no talk, come again. Brief is a very important step to take in all that you have to work with. And this is what a creative brief undertakes. And to most of you, everything should make sense in the circle of creating and analyzing whatever is inputted into the creative brief. Starting from brand profile, which is whatever your brand is and the guidelines your brand provides. The production needs in order to deliver the content that you're going to be communicating with. All the channels that you'll be talking through, whether it's digital, traditional, and so on. The SWOT analysis, for those who don't know what SWOT analysis is the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, and the threats of your brand that you're communicating with. The competition that is out there that you need to take under consideration. The consumer's profile, those that you're talking to and you're trying to influence. The schedule of your communications and your material that you're going to be outputting. The deliverables, such as what it is that you'll be delivering. The market insights that would analyze and make your communication material successful or not. And then the business objectives that you are aiming for. And the circle goes on and on. The circle never stops. The process is in continuous rotation. And so is the creative production process. Research and analysis is a big part of the starting point. I find out about everything and anything that's relevant to what I'm about to create for. Then I strategize and create a plan that will develop my process and make my communication materials a lot more successful. Then I decide on my design and then I start developing it. When I'm at a point where I'm satisfied, and so is your client, you start refinement. You refine your communication and your visuals and your output material so that it's perfectly aligned with your targets. Then comes your implementation. Even though we talk about brands that need to have a seamless communication platform, the implementation of where you place your communication material does play its own role. And then once you place everything and everything is out there, you start reviewing and start measuring your success. And once again, you come to the point where you research and analyze everything you've done, and then on your next move, you act accordingly. A brand is developed based on layers and layers of material that has to be either delivered to you as designers, or if you're doing a brand development structure, you need to think about and develop accordingly so that when it comes to communicating the brand stands for itself. Starting from naming, the name has to be correct. Even though many claim that a name, it has nothing to do with what I'm doing, it has everything to do with what you're doing. Then the corporate identity, what other people say is just a logo. It's not a logo, it's a face. It's a face of everything, and what everybody will see when you're talking to them, when you're messaging, is everything that they will refer back to when they're ready to react or act accordingly. The visual language. Photos or illustrations based on what you want to communicate your brand with. The feeling is different, the result is the same. We want to emotionally influence our audience. And based on what the brand wants to influence with, we decide whether we go with photography, illustrations, or a combination of the two. Editorial material. What we say, how we say it, reflects everything that the brand is. The editorial, the text, is of equal importance as your designs are, as your photographs and illustrations. So editorial material speaks the visual that you will place on your communication material. Environmental design. It's tricky with environmental design. Some claim it to be, but I'm not designing shops, I'm not an interior designer. Environmental design can also reflect to a website. It has to do with when your audience are connecting with your brand and walking through the channels of information and emotional connection. It's the same way as walking through an alley, reaching over the shelf, picking up a product, having a display in front to attract your audience to come through, and the checkout point, and so on and so forth. It's the same, if you think about it a little, it's the same aspect of a website. A website, in most cases today, do exactly the same thing. They display things, they give you messages, they even give you a choice of purchase, and then you process, and then you check out, and so on and so forth. This experience makes your audience connect and come back for more. That's why brand communication and creative use of technology is very important. In the same aspect of building a brand, you also build the brand's communication. The brand guidelines and alignment of your guidelines come in very, very important first layer. The visual, the key statements telling the story that lies under the brand is also very important. And using technology in order to tell your story and present your brand is another important layer. The user experience that we talk about all the time, how your user will experience his presence on your site or within your store, because we never step away from an environmental design. It's very important to create a connection. The magic, as I call it, the magic that your audience will use as an ambassador to whatever they have to refer to when it comes to the experience they have with your brand. So if we take this in steps, we start with step number 1, everything that has to do with corporate profile, brand guidelines and visual language. Whatever the project is, whatever it is that you need to deliver a communication plan for, this has to be delivered in first hand before you can move to step number 2. Step number 2 is your market position. Your brand has to have the realistic analysis of where it stands within the market. And we have to be able to evaluate that stand within the market before we start developing a communication plan. Very important is to identify how unique or different is your brand to its competitors, because we're going to use those tools to stand out within all the other brands that are relevant to the communication of products that they are out there. What is the brand standing within the industry? Are we a leader up on top? Are we in the middle fighting our way up? Or are we at the very bottom where we have to really strive to make a difference, to climb up the ladder, to be relevant to the audience the same way as our leaders are? And learn from them and use what they've used in your own unique way, the communication techniques that are most effective to your competitors. And the current situation is also very relevant to a client coming out to you and giving you the proposition of a new campaign or a new project. It's very important the reason why we're standing now thinking of a new campaign. And the objectives, what are we trying to gain from whatever it is that we will develop, and what do we need to consider? Obviously, what you want to achieve is the number one question you need to ask your brand to deliver. The second one is, how do you want to be perceived by your audience? This is very relevant to whatever the brand stands for. What are the attributes you want to convey in order to become relevant to your audience? Because if you're not relevant to your audience, people will pass you by without giving you a second glance or a second thought. And then being able to identify those target audiences, it's a very unique positioning that you need to consider very well. Who are you trying to reach? What are the usual or unique attributes of your audience? What is the emotional connection that you are trying to achieve? Emotion is the most overlooked part that most designers don't take under consideration. You'll be a lot more successful, or your client will be a lot more successful, if your audience connect emotionally with your product or brand. Emotion is a connection that asks for more. In the production process, especially in the digital aspect of communication, you identify each step, same as you do with any other brand communication. The only difference is that you put specific value in what you're working with. So with the digital aspect of things, step one will be to discover the brief for your digital communication material is very important. The scope of your document has to identify the pathway you will follow to create this communication material. Defining creative technology to counter-brief your original brief and identify challenges to come up with the next step. Your user experience and information architecture are parallel paths that need to be aligned. Functional requirements, technical requirements are also very important aspects that usually are handled by different technical personnel. Each one of them is a specialist, at least in most cases. Planning and cost is also very important. Cost usually underlines what the outcome will be. Budget, budget, budget. Something clients don't like to give that easy. And then we come to design. Designing the interface, which is what your audience will see. The technical design, so that the front visual face works seamlessly with what you're trying to say or show. The implementation of the material you will embed within your information system, like motion graphics, videos, or film, or any other aspect of design material. And then the development process. Development process is the part that brings your digital material to life. The interface development, the backend development, and then testing and questions and answers. The testing aspect, which everybody overlooks because everybody is eager to get their medium, their website, their application, is what people overlook in most cases, and that's where the little details are of big importance. How things move and how things react is what we stand for at the development phase. And then we deploy, and we never finish. The system administrator, the administration of your system has to be alive 24/7. We populate the content and we put it out there and we go live. Everything needs to be alive and monitored throughout the whole existence of that communication material that sits in a digital world. That is a non-stopping, moving communication system that stays alive for as long as it's on the web or in an app form. It's not a print that's been printed and it's out there and it's done. It's a continuous process that needs monitoring and management and reevaluation at all times. Because this is one medium you can always come back and reinforce, redesign, moderate, modify, so it stays relevant and stays alive. At the end of the day, the experience of your user is what creates emotional status and emotional connection with the material. The client is your partner. So with him, you will build a long-term relationship with clients around the creative use of design and technology, everything we talked about, everything we just mentioned. In a fast-paced world that is filled with so much noise, how do you get your message heard? How do you speak with one clear voice across the platform? This is what your corporate your brand profile will do. It should all be there when you come to use everything. How do you speak with one clear voice across all platforms? That's all your editorial material. Everything should be in place before you even start thinking about communication material. How do you remain relevant and keep engaging with your audience? It's the emotional connection. You connect with the emotion, you got your audience hooked. It's about combining design with creative use of technology. It's about always being reflective and reacting to the feedback. Always listen to what your audience have to say. How do they react when they come in contact with your content? Build things with tomorrow in mind. Stay relevant for longer time. Things that are designed to scale, easy to enlarge or minimize if you have to. And to adapt to the ever-changing trends in consumer behavior. Trends and behavior of audiences change on a daily basis. Could be something they hear in the news, or could be something their friends think it's relevant to today's materials. It's about really understanding design for technology and how to achieve that. Overcome limitations and push boundaries. Identify the opportunities in the real innovation with endless possibility in mind.